Yeah, this might ruffle some feathers.
Also new this morning, a school district is making a dramatic move to protect students and teachers. It's adding AR-15s to campus in response to recent mass shootings. School officials in Madison County, North Carolina say school resource officers will each now have a semi-automatic rifle. District officials say the guns will be locked inside a safe. The change was put in place following the Uvalde school shooting in Texas that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. Some people believe adding AR-15s to school will cause more harm than good.
So when I was on Bill Maher and I had the conversation with Bill Maher about teachers having guns in the schools, I made the argument that, teachers in the past have given up their lives to protect their children. And if they're willing to sacrifice their life to protect children, why not provide them with the ability to have a firearm so that they can fight for children? And in his very typical snarky fashion, he responded with, well, because they're teachers. And I get what he was saying, but I don't think he got what I was saying. What I was saying was, I'm not saying we should force every teacher in a school to be armed with a handgun or a rifle. What I'm saying is if there are teachers who are willing to undergo the processes that are set forth in order for them to be able to carry a gun to protect the children in the event that somebody does come into school and start shooting, why would we not allow them to be able to do that? Because if someone's willing to die for you, then they are also willing to protect you. And if we want the kids to be alive, we would want the people who are in a position to keep those kids alive to have what they need to actually do that. Now, I'm not going to be so naive as to say I don't understand why people would have any type of apprehension whatsoever about this school providing AR-15s to be put in the school for the resource officers. But once you get past the kind of hoplophobic, and for those who don't know what hoplophobia means, it means just an irrational fear of weapons. And once you get past this kind of hoplophobia and you really look at it logically, it makes sense. We just had a shooting in Uvalde where a kid used an AR-15 to massacre children. And then you had a bunch of cops who were scared to deal with that individual because he had an AR-15 apparently, or for whatever reasons they're saying they decided not to go into the school to save those kids' lives. But when it comes to actually dealing with a threat, I don't want the encounter between me and the person trying to kill me to be a fair fight. I've never understood this. There's this weird kind of thought process where we try to regulate the good citizens to the least common ability of a firearm while criminals are running around with the most capable firearms. It doesn't make any sense. If criminals are running around with AR-15s, I want an AR-15. If criminals are running around with handguns, I want an AR-15. If criminals are running around with knives, I want an AR-15. I don't want it to be fair. I'm not the one engaging in the criminal activity. I'm just living my life. So I want something that's going to give me the best ability to stop that. So why would that thought process not trickle over into the school? If we want to keep kids safe and we have situations where people are using AR-15s to come into school to kill kids, why would you not give the person that you put in place to protect those kids the same type of gun or better to defend them? That's kind of the whole concept of self-defense. Self-defense is not a sporting competition. It's a matter of life and death. And when it comes to something as finite as life, no, I don't want it to be fair. I want it to be so lopsided that I'm cheating. I think what a lot of people tend to forget is that when you're dealing with the self-defense situation, you're already behind the 8 ball. You're talking about a person who has had the time to think about what they were going to do. They had the time to sit and wait and pick your most vulnerable moments. You have to react to it. They are acting towards you. So understanding that, the AR-15 doesn't even make it equal. It just makes it a little bit better of an opportunity for them to defend themselves against this criminal who already has the advantage. I want you to think about the kids who were in Uvalde and the teachers that were in that school. They had no idea what was about to happen to them. They were literally just going on with their day and boom, a guy walks in with an AR-15 and starts shooting. I can't think of a bigger disadvantage than that. So if I then am a resource officer and I have to go and handle this situation, and now I know I have to deal with somebody who's using an AR-15, I don't want to go in there with a handgun. I want to go in there with an AR-15. It's no different than anything else in life when it comes to trying to be the best at it. I want the best tools possible to get the job done. I don't want the worst tool possible. And I think one of the fundamental problems when you have stories like this, where you have these school districts who actually provide firearms for resource officers, and in this case, AR-15s, I think people are thinking, oh, well, they're just gonna walk in there and just hand them an AR-15 and say, here you go, protect the school. They clearly state that there's a process by which they go about doing these things. There's gonna be training involved in these things, which is also ironic to me because in one breath, people who are sort of kind of anti will say things like, yeah, I just feel like people should get more training. Well, I mean, that's just an excuse to make firearm ownership as hard as possible. Because when you establish that there is training for something, you're always going to fall back on I wish there was more training. And then I wish there was more training. And then I wish there was more training. And before you know it, you're going to say, well, you need to be a Navy SEAL in order to have a firearm. That completely undermines the inherent purpose of the Second Amendment. It's designed so that people can own firearms outside of the military and outside of being a police officer. But people want to relegate the firearm ownership in this country to be a privilege and not a right. So, if you haven't been paying attention, I guess I'll answer this question. So how do I feel about this school providing AR-15s to the resource officer in order to protect kids if something were to ever go down? Personally, I like the idea. But that's because I'm a realist. I don't think we can virtue signal our way to safety. I don't think we can create a utopia where nothing happens. This is about hardening our schools. And I don't have a problem with hardening our schools because our kids are our most precious gift that we have in this world. So I'm down for doing whatever it needs to be done in order to protect them. And if that means that I have to have resource officers with AR-15s, so be it. We protect AR-15s with the most important people in this country. We protect AR-15s with the most important buildings in this country. We use AR-15s to protect all the things we consider important. But when it comes to our kids, oh by God, Jilly, oh my, we cannot protect our kids with AR-15s or guns. It's literally just predicated on fear. And fear is a natural thing. There's nothing unnatural about fear. Everybody has it. The problem is when the fear is irrational, and especially when it's an irrational fear towards an inanimate object. It's not like we're talking about something that is alive. It is not. And you're scared of it to such a degree that you can't even see the good that it can provide you, considering the reality of your circumstance. And you end up hurting yourself. You end up opening yourselves to allowing people to come in to manipulate you, to give up rights that you otherwise need to protect yourself. And when you engage that, and when you entrust your ability to protect yourself into these people who tell you we can protect you, i.e. the government, what ends up happening is when something happens and they can't protect you, the only thing you can do is say, well, where were you? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you go and save me? Why didn't you save the kids? That's all you have left to do because you put your trust into them. Whereas in the alternative, if you put your trust in yourself and put yourself in a position to protect yourself, you don't have to depend on them. If anything, they just become backup. And always remember, guns are essential, whether you like it or not. Because when the day comes, or if the day comes where somebody tries to use the gun to hurt you, the most essential thing you're going to want right then and there is going to be a gun. Want to know where to get the Guns Are Essential hat? Head over to shop.mrcolionnoir.com. You know, we talk a lot about empowerment in this country, except for when it comes to the Second Amendment. However, I can't think of anything more empowering than having the most effective tool to protect you and your family. So help me spread this message by liking and sharing this video with everyone you know. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, because the Second Amendment, when it said militia, it wasn't talking about the government. It was talking about you. Also, if you want to know where to find the I'm the Militia shirt and merchandise, click the I'm the Militia link in the description section of this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, make sure you hit that bell symbol.